Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and everything in Diablo 4 is changing with Season 6 and Vessel of Hatred. We just had a massive 2-hour campfire chat today, which revealed everything. Over the past few weeks, I've been posting videos about my theories on the level cap changing to 60, recently on Runewords coming. Both of those have been confirmed, and I had some concerns about the level 60 cap. Basically, the game had finally landed in a good place, right? Where everyone was happy and loving the game in the sense of progression. And now we're seeing, okay, they're going to be changing the max level, they're redoing difficulty settings, they're redoing scaling of our leveling journey, and I'm wondering, oh gosh, now that everything is just perfect, now we're changing everything. I was very concerned, but after today's campfire chat, all my concerns are gone. The team has absolutely cooked. We got so much good news today. We're gonna go through it all in as brief a summary as possible out of a 2-hour stream. So first off, the new level cap. As predicted, new level cap will be 60. However, as expected, you can look at it as currently the level cap is 50, right? You stop getting skill points level 50, and then we have basically 200 Paragon levels. That's exactly the mentality that they're going with. So they are now giving us 10 extra levels, 10 extra skill points, so we're going up to level 60. And then it'll be the 200 Paragon levels on top of that, but they're also giving us an additional 100 Paragon levels. So we're gonna have max level of 60 with 300 Paragon levels or Paragon points to gain thereafter. There is a cap at 300. Now the entire pace of the leveling journey is going to change. They don't want to slow things down, however, but the old world tier system, gone. We're getting an entirely new difficulty system. Gone is the old world tier 1, 2, 3, etc. Now we have 4 starting difficulties: normal, hard, expert, and penitent. Once you reach max level, level 60, then you unlock 4 additional difficulties: Torment 1, Torment 2, Torment 3, Torment 4. Now with the old system, the world tiers, right? What's the current meta? You ignore world tier 1, doesn't exist. You play world tier 2 until you unlock world tier 3. You spend the briefest amount of time on world tier 3 before getting into world tier 4 and you're done. With this new system, what they really want to focus on is letting you play at the pace that you are comfortable with the challenge that you're able to tackle. And if you can tackle higher difficulty, that's going to be rewarded with greater efficiency in your leveling progress. So if you can put together a build and the skill to tackle Penitent, the highest sub-max level difficulty, then you'll be rewarded by being able to be more efficient and level faster than someone running a lower difficulty. And the inspiration they kept coming back to was the Mind Cages as a system that they implemented in Season 4 that allows us to customize our difficulty, right? That if we want to, we can, boom, apply this thing, we raise the monster level, we're taking on greater challenge for greater reward. Another big thing that's coming with this whole rework of max level 60, we're seeing a stat squish. That has also been confirmed. We were also theorizing about that. We were seeing max armor at 1,000, for instance. And the purpose here is not to nerf us. Everything's going to be scaled down relatively. We're not going to feel any weaker. This is just to improve readability. This is something that I know there's some segment of players who've been talking about since the D3 days, that the numbers are too big. I want numbers that are more reasonable, that I can more easily read and digest when they pop up on screen, because the difference between a 9-digit number and a 10-digit number, it's unreadable, the difference. They've also rescaled monster health and damage to make things more consistent. The challenge will scale more smoothly. Also, monsters will always be the same level as players now. Currently, Diablo 4 is all about what monster level you're fighting. What they really want is, with Diablo 4 2.0, it's going to be about what difficulty level you're playing on. They've done some tuning to combat. We're not going to see as many one-shots. Bosses aren't going to be bullet sponges anymore. They also wanted to put a focus on maintaining player momentum, so there's going to be less instances of monsters slowing us down or otherwise interrupting our flow of gameplay. And a big goal with their new difficulty rework is ensuring that all content remains viable at all levels of play. They highlighted how there's a lot of content that once you're at the, once you got a really good build together and you're like crushing pit level 100, why would you ever bother doing whispers? World bosses become a waste of time. Helltide becomes irrelevant. Now everything is going to be able to scale. Every bit of content will remain relevant. So pre-level 60, you have access to those 4 levels of difficulty. You can swap between them whenever you want. Once you hit 60, Then you get access to the Torment difficulties, and you unlock higher Torment difficulties via the Pit. As soon as you hit level 60, you automatically unlock up to Pit level 20. And you gotta beat Pit level 20 to unlock the first Torment difficulty. Then you unlock Torment 2 at Pit tier 35, and subsequent ones every increments of 15 Pit levels. And Torment 1 will be the equivalent difficulty of World Tier 3 today. Now, not only will monster health and damage rise with higher difficulties, but also monster intensity. This is something that's already in the game. We just largely don't notice it, or at least I felt it back when D4 was new, and you were going from World Tier 2 to World Tier 3, World Tier 4, and spending more time in those world tiers. You can sense that monsters, as you were rising in the world tiers, they were becoming more aggressive. They would react to you sooner, their AI would become more dangerous, they'd have faster move speed, faster attack speed, so we're going to experience that in a greater capacity as we go through these higher Torment difficulties. Great way of increasing difficulty in a way that makes it a little bit more interesting. Another thing that I really like is that as soon as you hit Torment 1, you can get everything in the game. You do not need to reach the highest tiers of difficulty in order to complete your build. It's just going to take you longer. You can stay with your suboptimal F tier build on Torment 1, and it's going to take you longer, but you could eventually do you can eventually find all the items that you want, get all the upgrades that you want, but those who could push and desire to push into the higher difficulties will be rewarded with greater drop rates for all these things. So you will not be forced to go to higher difficulties. It will be your choice, depending on how efficient you want to be and what your build can handle. They really put a focus on higher difficulties are all about unlocking greater efficiency, not on unlocking different content or access to more items. I really like these changes. A lot of people have been speculating with Vessel of Hatred, are we going to get World Tier 5? And what they said is basically with this new system, we are effectively getting World Tiers 5 and 6. Now they're also reducing the highest Pit tier from 200 to 100. However, they are rescaling the difficulty of Pit tier 100 will be substantially more challenging than it is today. And a great quality of life change, we are now getting smart keys. So if you get a key for a nightmare dungeon on live server today, right, it's a specific level and you got to go to the correct world tier and monsters are going to be a different level and whatever. That's going to be highly simplified with Diablo 4 2.0. You're going to have a key that drops. And if you open that key in Torment 1, it's going to be scaled to Torment 1. If you open it in Torment 3, it'll be scaled to Torment 3. So it's not like, oh, I have all these low-level keys, let me just salvage them. It's whatever the key is will adapt to your difficulty. And that's also for Infernal Hordes or whatever other content in the game. And also to give you some sense of scale in those 4 original difficulties, the highest of the 4, Penitent, will be the equivalent of today's World Tier 2 plus 45 monster levels above your current level. So that's going to be a big challenge. Not impossible, especially given we're going to have access to more power in 2.0. Again, higher difficulty is going to mean more XP, more gold, more loot, and therefore translate into greater efficiency. So similar about the keys thing, ladder bosses, you know, Varshan and Grigor and all those guys, they unlock once you get to Torment 1, but then it doesn't matter what Torment you're on, it always costs the same number of materials. There's no more tormented bosses. Now it's really just whatever difficulty you're playing on, they'll drop more things. So if you have, you know, 1 key for the boss, you might want to wait until you can tackle a higher difficulty. It's ultimately up to you. It also sounds like they're removing the whole Stygian Stone requirement. So other concerns that I might have highlighted with the whole, you know, level 60 max thing is how's this going to work with you know, monster level? Well, they established now monsters just scale to our level. How does this going to work with items and item power, right? Item power 925 items at the highest levels, and what about sacred gear and ancestral gear? All of that is changing. Every piece of gear right now that you have that is above item power 540 is going to be brought down to 540. That's the new max item power of regular items. So as a level 50 character, the max item level is 540. Then from levels 51 through 60, that max item power rises to an eventual 750. 750 max item power once you're level 60. Now that said, that's technically not the highest item power. Most items that drop for us at level 60 will be 750. However, insert ancestral items. Sacreds are gone completely. Now, ancestrals are rare drops. You're not going to be swimming in them. They're not going to be, every drop is going to be ancestral. Ancestral items will have item power 800 and a guaranteed greater affix. The only items with greater affixes will be ancestral. So as soon as you see that greater affix icon, you know instantly that's an ancestral, and that is going to be a item power 800 item. Ancestrals only begin to drop at Torment 1 difficulty. And they're going to stay rare throughout all Torment levels. Again, it's not that by the highest Torment, they are the default drop. Ancestrals can have more than one greater affix, but they are guaranteed a single greater affix. Ancestrals will be when you start finding your forever items. So, again, as soon as you unlock Torment 1, that is when you begin your journey of collecting your forever gear. That is when you have access to all the best stuff in the game, and going in higher difficulty just expedites how fast you will do that. I really enjoy this change. Also, all legendary aspects are buffed to be more powerful on ancestral gear. Also, ancestrals have access to 2 tempering slots. Other items only have 1 tempering slot. Ancestrals can be masterworked up to 12 times. Non-ancestrals can only be masterworked 4 times. So ancestrals are definitely going to be our best in slots. That's not changing, but we're going to have a bit more of a journey getting to them. Now onto the Paragon system changes. So first off, max rank of glyphs going from 21 to 100. As has already been the case, once you hit rank 15, you unlock 1 radius increase. Once you hit rank 46, I don't know why it's such a weird number, you unlock a 2nd radius increase. Again, I don't know why they didn't just make it level 50, but whatever. Also, when it becomes level 46, it transforms into a legendary glyph, unlocking a very powerful multiplicative bonus. Now, I know everyone is like, oh god, we've got to level up our glyphs even more. Nightmare dungeons, what a giant nightmare. No pun intended. Now you upgrade your glyphs in the pit, not in nightmare dungeons. And this is going to turn into a very familiar system for Diablo 3 players, leveling up their legendary gems. It's now being turned into an attempt-based system, similar to legendary gems in Diablo 3, where you select a gem and you have a chance, right? You have, like, let's say 3 attempts, and you have a chance every time to upgrade the gem by 1 level. So similar system here. If the level of pit is at least 10 levels above the level of your glyph, you are guaranteed. There's no chance of failure on the upgrade. And you get bonus ranks if you are 20 levels above or more. So between that and between running pits for the glyph XP, we can expect to be ranking up our glyphs much faster than we're ranking them up today. Also, it seems like blue glyphs are gone completely, which is great, because from the launch of the game, I've been asking, why do blue glyphs exist? It seems like they're a relic of some time in which they were some stopgap to your yellow glyphs. They serve no more purpose in the game, so I'm glad that they're gone. Now, another big change to the Paragon system: realm-based Paragon points. That means within seasonal soft core, if you have 300 Paragon levels, all of your characters have 300 Paragon levels. However, your Paragon levels cannot be used, your Paragon points cannot be used until you hit level 60. So you're not going to have super powered level 1 characters, but as soon as you hit 60, then all your Paragon levels unlock and you can apply all those points. And the increase from Paragon 200 to Paragon 300 is going to give us substantially more Paragon points. Well, not just more Paragon points, but it's going to substantially extend the leveling journey. Right now, hitting level 100 is super fast. It's going to take a lot longer to hit Paragon 300, and that's going to be good for everyone. For people that complain that it takes too little time to reach 100, it's going to be great. You're going to have more to chase. And for those people that say, oh man, I'm happy that now I can finally hit level 100 in a reasonable amount of time. Now it's going to take forever to reach 300. You won't have to reach 300. Don't worry. We'll go over that in a bit. And the main reason here is that they are now putting a cap on the number of Paragon boards that you can have in your build. 5, including the starter board. And that's because they want to change this current meta of Paragon boards where all you want to do is unlock as many boards as possible, because the most powerful thing that you have access to are the Paragon glyphs. So you just want to have as many Paragon glyphs as possible, which really makes the Paragon system boring because you're not making any kind of interesting choices. It's really just, well, I'm going to have most of the Paragon boards and shove my glyphs in there. Now that we're limited to 5, which I think this is a great change, now, again, the most powerful stuff is going to be getting those 5 Paragon glyphs. But then once you're done, okay, now you move on to the next most important thing, which is going to be the potential legendary glyphs that are useful to you. And then the next most important thing, the yellow glyphs, and then the next most important thing, the blue glyphs. So as you're going further and further and further, more and more Paragon points, the things you're doing become less important to your overall power, meaning if you want to stop at Paragon 200, you can. Someone with Paragon 300 isn't going to be oodles more powerful than you, which is why technically, right, in Diablo 4, you can say, well, you know, you don't really need to reach level 100. For instance, in Diablo 2 and Path of Exile, you don't need to reach level 100. If you're like level low 90s, you're really strong. You're not going to really benefit from hitting 100. That wasn't the case in Diablo 4 because those few extra levels could mean unlocking another Paragon board and therefore another Paragon glyph and therefore substantially more power. Now, okay, that level 300 character is going to have like 50 more main stat than you. Big whoop. It's still worth it for the blasters. They're still being rewarded for their extra time and effort, but it's not as significant of a difference. And this was my big problem with D3's Paragon system, which is that the D3 endgame was all about just farming Paragon every day because someone having 2,000 more Paragon levels than you meant they were twice as strong as you. Moving it to more of a kind of prestige system of, yeah, I have a little bit more power, but really this is just saying, I've played this game a ton to have 300 Paragon levels. I much prefer that system. So again, for people that don't have as much time to play or are slower paced or, you know, don't want to spend 2 months, they just want to do their quick 2-week blast before coming back next season, you'll be able to accomplish everything that you feel you need to become as strong as you want to, probably in the same amount of time as has been in Season 5, maybe even less. Now, every class has also gotten a new Paragon board, so we have more options to pick from. All the existing boards have been retuned somehow. They also kind of addressed Diablo 3 and its, 20 different difficulty settings, which is a complaint that I've had about D3. I didn't like that they just, over the years, kept adding higher, more torments, more difficulties, which means we have a game that has 20 different difficulty settings, of which, like, 3 of them are used. And what they said was, contrary to D3, the jump in torment from one torment to the next is going to feel much more significant. It's not going to just be like a 2-hour journey of going through the difficulties and then you're done. You're really going to feel that increase in difficulty. It should feel like a meaningful step forward is what they communicated. Now they've made some changes to tempering. All the weapon tempering affixes are now going to be multiplicative bonuses, and all of the offensive tempering affixes are going to be additive. So your big damage chunks are going to come from the weapons, and the smaller ones will be on your other slots that you can have the offensive affixes. They're also adding new weapon affixes, including chance to deal double damage and chance to hit twice for those skills where it didn't make sense to have like double projectiles. All the size and duration affixes, they moved to the utility slots, so they're not competing with damage. And wherever possible, when talking about the recipes themselves, they've tried to limit them to 4. In fact, they might have completely limited them to 4. In general, they aim to just have 3 per manual, but really they don't want to go above 4. So like right now on live servers, you have some temper manuals that have 5 possibilities, so it's like, okay, I'm rolling a 1 in 5, a 20% chance to get what I want. Their target now is to have 3 per manual, so 33% chance, not nearly as bad. Bricking's gonna happen less. Does this solve the bricking problem that I've belabored now for a couple of weeks? No. Does it improve things? Yes. Ultimately, we can arrive eventually in a position where, for the most part, we can just ignore the problem most of the times, I guess. Again, not my ideal solution, but I'll take it. Then, big change to ultimate skills. You can now put more than 1 point into an ultimate skill. Just like any other skill, you can have up to 5 ranks in an ultimate. And contrary to other skills, every point in an ultimate increases its damage, or whatever its effect is, and reduces its cooldown as well. You are still limited to only being able to have 1 ultimate skill, and things like the Harlequin Crest, right, the Shaco, cannot give you access to any ultimate that you have not actually put a skill point into. The devs then went through some class updates. Every class is getting 1 new skill, 1 new key passive, and some other new stuff as well. Barbarian is getting Mighty Throw. You throw your weapon, it does impact damage, stays there a bit, doing damage over time in the area. The new Barb key passive is all about Thorns. They really want to enable a Thorns playstyle. And their new legendary Paragon node makes earthquakes have a chance to spawn dust devils. For the druid, they're getting a new core skill called Stone Burst. This is a channeled skill. The longer you channel it, the bigger the area gets, and when you release, it does a big burst of damage, so you can either choose to hold it down for a big damage burst or spam it for a lot of small damage bursts. Your key passive and legendary nodes are enabling companion builds, and we actually see this ridiculous clip of you being a werewolf leading a pack of werewolves. There seems to be something that turns your wolves into werewolves, and this looks amazing. The Necromancer's getting a new darkness ultimate called Soul Rift. This creates an area around you, dealing damage over time, sucking souls out of enemies. And every time it sucks a soul, you gain essence and barrier. Yes, they're adding barrier a lot more to the Necromancer's kit. Blood Necros have a lot of way of boosting their health and their, I think, fortify. The Bone and Shadow Necros didn't have as much survivability as Blood Necros, so they'll be able to stack a lot more barrier now. And the key passive and new Paragon node that they're getting all enables and facilitates curse gameplay. They're making curses deal damage when you hit enemies with curses now. For the rogue, we are getting a spin to win skill, Dance of Knives, new channel skill, looks amazing. Rather than consume resource, it's charge based, so it's gonna feel substantially different from the Barbarian's Whirlwind, for instance. There's no energy cost, and how long you can keep it going is dependent on how many charges it has. And you're basically spinning around, launching knives at everyone around you, and I gotta try this build. Their new key passive is all about buffing your non-physical damage and encouraging you to mix and match as many different elements as possible, poison, cold, and shadow, for maximum benefit. For the sorcerer, we're getting a new conjuration skill, Familiar. And what this does is it summons a familiar that's going to go then dive bomb an enemy. And the element that that familiar is will be whatever element your previously casted skill was. So you cast Fireball and then Familiar, you're going to get a Fire Familiar. Every element makes a familiar do something different. Fire Familiar will apply a burning effect. Cold will be chill, lightning will be stun. So right now, for instance, sorcerers are in a position in the meta where they are basically always taking Firebolt enchantment to apply burning to enemies because they have a lot of synergies with having enemies be burning to deal more damage to them. Now maybe we'll be able to take out Firebolt from the enchantment and just work a familiar into our kit, get that fire familiar to apply the burning. And then the sorcerer's new key passive and legendary node are all about mix and matching elements. They want you to, yeah, it's similar to the Tal Rasha in Diablo 3, right? Where the more elemental stacks you have, the more you are getting buffed in different ways. Then we're getting 2 new mythic unique items. The Shroud of False Death is really, really powerful because it gives +1 to all passive skills. Every single passive, you get a +1 into it, meaning even if you don't have any points in a passive, you now have 1 point in every passive in your skill tree. Then the Heir of Perdition, I'm not crazy about. It does this weird thing, okay? It gives you a 60% multiplicative damage bonus, which is great. But it does this weird thing where it gives you Lilith's Favor. That's what gives you the 60% damage buff. And if you are near other players, only one player can ever have Lilith's Favor. So if you're in a party and someone else has this item, then one of you or the other will gain Lilith's Favor. The cool thing about it is that you will absorb their stack. So let's say you get Lilith's Favor, then now your buddy has no bonus and you have 120% more damage. So in a party of 4, you can have 240% more damage, and maybe you want to run some kind of support kit with your party members. Maybe they're all equipping this item in the hopes that you get the bonus, and I don't know. It's weird. Someone's gonna find something crazy to do with this, but if you're playing by yourself, it's just a flat 60% buff. Now, the most interesting thing about this is that it says you deal more damage to angels and demons. Angels. Angels. We don't fight any angels in base Diablo 4. The only angel we even see is Inarius. Long have we theorized of the return of Imperius, the invasion of heaven. I kind of had as an idea for an expansion in the future would be the invasion of heaven. Imperius opens the gates to heaven and decides it's time to exterminate humanity. And so we have Imperius come down with his host of angels, and we're fighting angels. And that would also be when we reintroduce the Paladin class, because again, the gates to heaven have been closed, and so maybe the power of the light is weakened, but the fact that we already have an item now that does more damage to angels suggests that within this expansion we're going to encounter angels, and in substantial enough quantity to make this stat meaningful. Either that or they're setting up for very long term. Then some quality of life things. They're giving us the ability to select our default town portal location, right? Instead of getting yeeted to whatever is your closest city, you can set, I always want to go to Paragon, or I always want to go to the Tree of Whispers, and you can change it at any point and even revert it to whatever is closest. Fantastic quality of life. They're reworking monster crowd controls. They don't want regular monsters to be hard CCing us as much as normal, so they're changing a lot of those hard CCs into soft CCs. A hard CC is something that just you can't do anything at all for 3 seconds. A soft CC would be, for instance, you're immobilized, so you can't move, but you can still fight back. The monsters with those really long death animations, those have been changed. They're not going to pop just instantly. We're getting an entire new inventory tab just for socketable items, like gems and, what else? We're getting an extra stash tab. And yes, the big drop that I didn't expect to be revealed in this Campfire chat, Runewords are confirmed, and they are an implementation of the original Runewords system that the Diablo 4 devs presented to us many years ago, where it's all going to be 2-word Runewords. And yes, that is why we have the second socket in the helm, as we, again, theorized last week. And they describe Runewords in Diablo 4 as you basically making your own spells. So rather than a fixed list of Runewords like in Diablo 2, they have a bunch of I'm going to simplify this to trigger runes and effect runes. They call them ritual runes and invocation runes. So every rune word must be 1 ritual rune and 1 invocation rune. They're like little puzzle pieces. You cannot put 2 rituals or 2 invocations. It's always trigger and effect. The ritual rune is something that you do, some action that the player takes, and then the invocation is the effect that happens. So one example that we saw was, as a ritual rune, cast a skill with a cooldown, and as an effect, gain crit strike chance. Another trigger would be travel 5 meters. Another effect would be replace your next evade with the sorcerer's teleport, blinking further, dealing damage and becoming unstoppable. Now, runes also operate on this system called offering. So runes basically generate a resource. This resource is called offering. The resource is generated by the ritual rune. So take, for instance, the back rune here. If you travel 5 meters, you gain 50 offering. So every time the condition is met, i.e. travel 5 meters, then you gain 50 offering. And if you pair this, for instance, with a jaw rune, that's an invocation rune, that has a cooldown of 2 seconds, that's the one that replaces your next evade with a teleport. And that also requires 500 offerings. So you gotta travel 5 meters 10 times in order to get enough offering to then make use of your jaw rune. So that's basically how these work. You have the trigger, which then enables you to gain offering, and then you have the effect, which requires some minimum amount of offering and potentially some other triggering condition. Now things get a little tricky here, because then there's something called an overflow mechanic, where if you have more than enough offering to activate a skill, then you go into overflow, and many of these, so many of these runes will be buffed somehow or have a more potent effect based on the amount of overflow. So it's possible that whenever the trigger rune activates, it spends all of your offering. And again, the extra overflow will give you some additional buffs. A little unclear. We'll learn more very soon. Now, Runewords go into any item that accepts 2 sockets. So that's going to be 2-handed weapons, pants, chest, and now helms, which are getting a second socket. However, this is not going to make barbs OP, because any character can only benefit from 2 Runewords. And you cannot equip the same rune twice. Not just the same rune word, you cannot have even the same rune twice. Runes will only be available for those who buy Vessel of Hatred. That's the only thing here I think that we're going over that is exclusive to the expansion. Just like it was in Diablo 2. Runes will be able to stack on top of each other, and they are tradable. This has massive implications for the trade economy. You're going to unlock the ability for runes to start dropping in the Vessel of Hatred campaign. They'll be able to drop anywhere in the game, but they have a greater chance to drop in the Undercity new endgame activity. And a big part of what these Runewords enable is the ability to harness the power of other classes. As you saw there with the example of the Sorcerer Teleport, every class has, I think, 1 or 2 skills that other classes can get via Runewords. Then there's going to be a rune crafting system. If you have 3 of the same rune, you can consume them to generate a new random rune that is going to be different from the runes you just consumed. Runes are also going to have different qualities, so there can be magic runes and rare runes, and if you do 3 magic runes, then you have a chance of getting a rare rune. Same thing with a rare rune, a chance of getting a higher quality rune. And you can also use runes as an additional way to craft mythic items. Currently, we have a way to craft them with Resplendent Sparks. That method is not going away, but now every mythic will additionally have a recipe that requires some specific runes plus 1 Resplendent Spark. And remember, runes are tradable. And that about wraps up everything. Everything that we just covered here is going to be available on the PTR, which goes live next Wednesday. Well, everything will be available on PTR. PTR starts next Wednesday, but for the first 2 days until mid-Friday, we're not going to have access to some of the stuff. Basically, they want to first test out the leveling journey. Then, starting on Friday, they're going to release something on PTR where we're going to be able to boost our characters, if we want to. They're giving us the tools that we need to properly test everything on PTR, so all the character boosting and get all the runes and get all the stuff, that'll all be available in-game starting on Friday afternoon at some point, once they push a patch live. During the Q&A section, they confirmed that an armory is in the works, right? A wardrobe to change our builds with a click. It's in the works. No news on when it's coming yet, but it's in the works. People asked, what's the point of Nightmare Dungeons now? Now, in the pit, you no longer get masterworking materials. Instead, you get them in Nightmare Dungeons. But before we collectively lose our minds, you are going to get them just to drop from monsters, period. You open a chest, you're going to get masterworking mats. Elite packs are going to be a big source of masterworking materials in Nightmare Dungeons. So the current meta of Nightmare Dungeons, right, to level up your glyph XP is just, you just speed through to get to the objective, ignoring, like, everything is a waste of time in there, right? You just want to get to the boss, get it done, get the objectives. Now, nothing's a waste of time. You go down the wrong branch, and you find an elite pack. Hey, that's great. Bunch of masterworking mats. Of course, the boss will also drop a bunch of masterworking mats, but overall, this should make Nightmare Dungeons feel better. They're also improving Nightmare Dungeons by removing the... a lot of Nightmare Dungeons have that sort of like intermediary room that's kind of a time waste room. I think they're just replacing that with an elite pack now or something. They confirmed that runes are extractable, so you can reuse runes. The devs refused to comment on the damage to angels, but they acknowledged that it is on that item and not a mistake. Infernal Hordes will not be available on PTR for whatever reason, but they are still in the game forever moving forward. And the devs also said they haven't even told us what the Season 6 mechanic is, and it's going to be an actual mechanic this time. It's not going to be the Season 4, Season 5, we don't actually get a mechanic. So, that is a lot. That is a long video, but there was so much to cover here, folks. I am so hype about everything. I cannot wait to test on PTR. All of my concerns have been alleviated. 99% of what I've heard today sounds fantastic. And I'm very much looking forward to the future of Diablo 4, but what do you folks think? Sound off in the comments. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my supporters. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.